Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Tom Morgan Drum Studio. Today we're going to continue on through our book, The Sequential Approach to Fundamental Snare Drum, and now we're moving on to page 11. And 11 is all about whole notes and whole rests. So we're just taking some of the beginning notes here and getting familiar with them. We've already done the quarter note and the quarter rest, each of which get one count each. And remember, our definition of a count is a number and an and. The amount of time it takes you to say one and or two and so forth. So we've taken quarter notes and quarter rests, half notes and half rests, each of which get two counts, two numbers and ands. And today we're going to add another note and another rest. And the note that's introduced on page 11 is the whole note. And if you look at the book, and again, you'll need the book to make sense out of these videos. The information about that is in the comments section below. But if you look on page 11, you'll see the whole note gets four counts, four numbers and ands. So we hold it, in a sense, for four counts. Now, just to kind of give you another way to think about this, if you were playing an instrument like, say, the trumpet, and you were given a whole note, that would mean you would hold the note, blow the note for four counts. Ta, two, three, four. But on the snare drum, at this point, we don't have the ability to sustain a note. I mean, that's all we have. So we're just going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and we're going to count out the four counts that give us the value of the whole note. So here's our whole note, and it's just a note head that's not solid, it's open, and it doesn't have a stem like the half note or quarter note have. So it looks like this. And then we also have the whole rest over here, which is just a box. And you may be thinking, well, gee, that looks a lot like a half rest. How do I know the difference? Well, if you look really closely, you'll see that the half rest, if you can remember back on the page before, page 10, the half rest is sitting on top of the line, whereas the whole rest is hanging from the line this way. Now, when you're in the middle of playing, it's pretty easy to tell the difference because, you know, if you're in 4/4 time and the only thing in the measure is a whole rest, then obviously, it's going to be a whole rest. It would have to be to get four counts. If there is a rest, a box like this, but there are other notes in the measure, then it's going to be a half rest. So it's not like you have to get down and squint at the music to see. It's pretty obvious as you're reading which one it is. But anyway, that's what we have here. Whole note, four counts, a whole rest, four counts. So let's look at page 11. We'll look at page 11 and we will play through the first exercise here. It's in 4/4 time. Remember, we're just worrying about the top number of the time signature at this point. And the top four tells us there's four counts in a measure, which, since we're using whole notes, we would have to use 4/4 time for the whole note to fit into the measure. So I'm just going to play exercise 1 on page 11, counting out loud. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and that's exercise 1. Notice I kept an even tempo all the way through and I didn't interrupt my counting to take a breath. It takes practice so that you don't put an extra beat in while you take a breath. You just squeeze the breath in, or you can inhale as you are counting, and keep the tempo going. All right, we're going to drop down to number 2, another 4-line exercise here. And it's really just the same idea. It's just another exercise to practice using the whole note and the whole rest, but also the half note and half rest and the quarter note and quarter rest all combined. So here we go. Here's number 2. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and. All right, and I'm moving fairly quickly if you're trying to play along with me. If that's a little fast, just go ahead and slow the tempo down and work on it slower. But it would be good to get to where you can play it along with me at that tempo. So that's something to practice. Now we're going to move on to page 12 and 13. And this is called Suite for Snare Drum. And a suite is, if you go and look at classical music, a lot of composers wrote suites. And what they meant by that was a series of movements, smaller pieces that were all part of this overall suite. Bach wrote cello suites and, suites for violin and so forth. And many other composers did too. Well, here we just have a 3-movement suite, the fanfare, the minuet, and the march. And these are all 3 of these are titles that are pretty typical of movements in a suite. But the big point about this is that it gives us another vehicle to use to practice playing buzzes. And remember, in our last video, we talked about how to play a buzz, and we've been hopefully practicing some buzzes with each hand and doing those exercises where we play single buzz strokes in various combinations. Well, now we're going to kind of put it into a solo, a little piece of music here. And so you can see, if you look at the music, that there are notes that don't have a Z on them. And those are notes you just play single like this, like we were doing before. But then some notes have that little Z on them, and that's becoming, or has become, a way of notating a buzzed stroke. So for example, in the first measure, you have a half note with no Z on it, so you're just going to play it normally. But the 2 quarter notes following it each have a Z on the stem. And what that would mean is that you're going to just buzz those 2 quarter notes. They still get 1 count. They're no different than any other quarter note, except that they're buzzed. So as you look through this, you'll see there are notes that are buzzed scattered throughout all 3 movements. I'll just play this piece. You notice that the first movement, the fanfare, is in 4/4 time. So it's not unlike what we just did, except that now we're adding some buzzes. Okay, so here's the fanfare. And I'll play this a little bit faster, just for the sake of time. But again, you can practice it slower. I would recommend practicing it slower, however slow you need to go to keep an even tempo. All right, here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. All right, now I'm going to move down to the minuet, and the time signature changes to 3/4 times, so now there's 3 counts in a measure. And we'll do the minuet a little bit slower. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and. All right, and now we'll play the third movement, the march, and we'll take it at a march tempo. Okay, and notice we're in 2/4 time now. So now there are just 2 counts in a measure. So I'm going to be counting at 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and like that. 1 and 2 and 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 1, 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 1 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 and 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Okay, so congratulations, you just completed your first solo. So there's one little note here that I want to point out. In the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line from the top, you see there that there's a whole rest in the second measure of that line. And remember, the whole rest, we said, got 4 counts. But a whole rest is also used when a measure is just blank with no notes in it at all. And it really is used no matter what the time signature is. So even though this is 2/4 time, just putting a whole rest there just means one measure of 2/4 time silent. If we had a whole rest found in a piece that was in 3/4 time, it would mean the same thing. So you don't have to write a half rest and a quarter rest. You can just write a whole rest, and everybody knows, oh, that just means that measure doesn't have any notes in it, but it's still a measure of 3/4. In this case, it's a measure of 2/4. So you don't give that whole rest 4 counts in that case. Now we could put a half rest there and it would be fine, and you'll see that in music, but I just wanted to point out to you that it's kind of universally understood that a measure with a whole rest in it, no matter what the meter, no matter what the time signature, it just means that measure has no notes in it. It's silent, but it doesn't change the meter. Okay, one last thing we want you to do, and that is the next page, page 14, is a little note speller kind of thing. And just to test yourself, to make sure you know the names of the notes and how many counts they get, you can use that top half of that page and just fill in those blanks. And I've done the first one for you. Okay? And we'll go over that in the next video. But it's very important that you learn the names of the notes and you learn how many counts they get. Because if you're a musician and you're going to be talking to other musicians, you know, they're going to be using these musical terms. And so you have to know, you can't just think of a quarter note as, oh, that one note that has a filled in note head and a stem. You've got to know, oh, that's a quarter note, and be able to refer to it as a quarter note and how many counts it gets and all of that. So just test yourself. It's no big deal. Most people will be able to do that without any trouble. All right, and that's the end of our lesson for today. Please subscribe to the channel and also like this video. And we'll just see you on the next video. Bye-bye.